Rich Jocks, RIP scholarship, girl's shirt, her judo flip, sends 200 lb captain sliding 20 feet. What would you do if the richest kid on campus ripped your shirt in front of 100 cameras, run for cover, or let 8 years of hidden training answer for you? One heartbeat later, a 200-pound bully is sailing through the air, and the entire school is about to learn the price of picking the wrong target. The double doors of the Rivington Prep dining hall exploded inward as Maya Hernandez, the 17-year-old scholarship student in vintage corduroy and faded sneakers, stumbled backward into the glare of overhead lights. 3 varsity hockey players barreled after her. Chad Whitman, 200 pounds of Massachusetts state champion arrogance, clutching her canvas backpack like a trophy. A wet, angry rip cracked against the marble walls when her shirt split straight down the spine, but instead of shrinking, Maya dropped her weight hands' loose feet, sliding into a stance her body had memorized long before she could drive. What followed would loop on TikTok feeds all across the privileged corridors of Brookline. Chad Whitman, Rivington's untouchable golden boy, launched into a perfect airborne arc, skimming 20 feet over the freshly waxed floor before skidding to a stunned halt. The quiet transfer nobody noticed had just executed a textbook Seoi nage that would ignite a Title IX firestorm and shatter the school's pristine facade. If you have ever felt small beside people who treat money like armor, stay with this story, because sometimes the most devastating throws happen when a bully chooses the wrong target. Maya had rolled through Rivington's wrought iron gates one gray Tuesday in September, her dented 2010 Toyota Corolla trembling between rows of Mercedes GLCs and gleaming Rivian trucks. The need-based scholarship that delivered her here felt less like a gift than a dare, as she hugged the threadbare duffel that had carried 8 years of tournament G's before her family's finances collapsed. Rivington Prep sprawled over 40 manicured acres outside Boston, its tuition eclipsing what most families earned in a year. When the acceptance letter arrived at the cramped apartment above her mother's banh mi food truck, it had seemed like deliverance. Now the donor plaques and trophy cases felt more like border walls, their polished surfaces reflecting the scuffs on her sneakers, as if to whisper, "You don't belong." In AP literature, while classmates compared Nantucket sailing regattas, Maya kept silent. Her summer had been 60-hour shifts at 2 minimum-wage jobs, scraping together cash for used textbooks those kids bought without checking price tags. Pressed about her background, she merely said she was a public school transfer, omitting eviction notices, medical bankruptcies, and nights she skipped dinner so her little brother could eat. Mrs. Langley tried to draw her into discussion, but every casual mention of Mediterranean cruises raised invisible walls Maya could almost hear sliding into place. She ate alone in the dining hall's far corner, watched cliques forged in kindergarten at elite Montessori academies laugh over weekend plans at country clubs she'd only glimpsed from I-90. Her only moments of belonging existed in memory: the community center dojo, where Coach Kenji Sato had taught her that the first act of self-defense was observation. 3 weeks in, the harassment crept from whispers to action. Anonymous sticky notes sneered at her thrift store fashion show. Her backpack vanished at lunch, discovered later in a recycling bin soaked in Sprite. Textbooks scattered across polished corridors by accidents, followed by practiced apologies and thin smiles. Maya logged everything, photos times witnesses, just as Coach Sato had drilled after every sparring session. She told herself she could endure 2 years' graduate escape to a world where merit outweighed pedigree. She was wrong. By October, Chad Whitman had made her his hobby. 18 legacy for 3 generations early. Admit to Yale, he cruised Rivington's halls with the entitlement of a crown prince, his great-grandfather's name etched above the library doors, his family's checks funding new hockey locker rooms, his father's clout erasing other athletes' suspensions. Insults about her clothes slipped from his mouth with the polished cruelty of someone trained to wound long before he ever taped a hockey stick. Nice flannel Hernandez goodwill, having a blowout cue laughter from Brett Dawson and Logan Price, their loyalty bought with weekends at the Whitman Ski Lodge in Park City. Each barb chipped at Maya's composure. Each smirk echoed through her insomniac mind. The intimidation sharpened Chad, blocking hallways, so she had to squeeze by while he muttered about charity cases lowering property values. his elbow tipping her lunch tray down the front of her last clean blouse, his breath on her neck during a fire drill as he whispered that her mother probably scrubbed toilets for families like his. Reflex screamed to answer with a throw. Discipline chained her muscles still. A fight meant expulsion, and expulsion meant returning to a crumbling public school where her dreams would die as surely as her father had in a charity ward. Her first visit to guidance counselor Ms. Richardson felt like confession. Maya spread photos of ruined homework and cruel notes across the pastel desk. Ms. Richardson nodded palms, steepled beneath posters that preached kindness and respect. Chad's under enormous pressure college scouts' parental expectations, she offered gently. Sometimes students from different backgrounds misread social cues. Have you tried talking to him? Translation: Chad Whitman was untouchable, and Maya was on her own. She left feeling smaller than when she arrived, aware that Rivington's anti-bullying policy was wallpaper the privileged peeled off at will. By November, torment became ritual. Every sunrise found Chad and his entourage flanking her locker, a gauntlet of deliberate shoves and comments about bargain bin shoes. Other students watched, some sympathetic, most relieved they weren't targets. None dared interrupt the kingdom's heir apparent. A scattered handful of scholarship kids and commuter students tried to throw Maya discreet lifelines, an understanding nod in the hallway, a saved seat at lunch, a whispered Chad's in a mood steer clear but solidarity among the powerless bent easily beneath Rivington's machinery of privilege. She shifted her schedule, arrived before dawn, threaded labyrinthine routes between classes, munched sandwiches in dark music rooms, yet the campus still felt stamped with Chad Whitman's monogram. Somehow he learned her new locker combo, her updated timetable, the exact minute she crossed the quad, information that floated to him on currents of ambition from classmates eager to curry favor with the Golden Prince. The siege felt inevitable, like watching thunderheads mass while standing in an open field. Maya stopped using her locker except for overflow, lugged every essential in her backpack, and moved through corridors the way soldiers scan alleyways, alert for angles, exits, ambushes. The fracture came the week before Thanksgiving, while most students compared Disney Med cruises and Park City chalet reservations. Maya's locker hung, gaping, the few personal items she'd risked leaving behind, strewn across polished tile. Her one good interview blazer, the navy piece she'd bought with 3 weeks of cashier wages reserved for campus visits, lay slashed beyond rescue. Pinned to the shredded lining in Chad's unmistakable scrawl, "Maybe transfer back to where you belong." Onlookers shrank from the expression that hardened her face. 17 years of restraint fissured in that instant. She gathered every fragment, photographed the scene, slipped the note into her evidence folder, but something vital had shifted. They had destroyed the single garment that embodied her hope. Armed with months of documentation, she marched to Assistant Headmaster Donovan, whose office was a shrine to Rivington tradition, old hockey photos, plaques bearing Whitman and other donor surnames. He skimmed her files with the impatience of a man late for golf. "These are heavy allegations, Miss Hernandez. Chad Whitman is an exemplary student captain of varsity hockey bound for Yale. Are you sure you're not misreading our culture? What you call harassment might just be classic school bonding." His tone implied she should treasure the attention, as though being noticed by a Whitman were a privilege, not a curse. That night, Maya sat in her Corolla outside her mother's food truck commissary, tears of acid rage searing her throat. 8 years of judo had taught her discipline, respect, and the moment when softness without strength turns to surrender. Coach Sato's voice whispered, "Know when to yield, know when to plant your feet." She had yielded long enough. After the trucks closed, she slipped into the 24-hour Planet Fitness across the street. Footwork drills between elliptical machines, COE nage reps, with a 40-pound sandbag grip, exercises on pull-up bars. Muscles remembered what poverty had forced her to abandon. Each drop of sweat forged a vow she would never again be anyone's victim. Emboldened by the administration's indifference, Chad escalated. He posted a photo of Maya in her Burger Shack uniform, face pixelated but identity obvious, captioned "Rivington's charity case, flipping burgers to afford econ." The image ricocheted through campus group chats, accompanied by jeers about protecting traditions. Maya screen captured everything, backed files to Google Drive, emailed redundancies to herself and a friend at MIT. She understood now justice here bowed to money unless forced into daylight, documented undeniable viral. She thought of David of Rosa Parks, of every quiet soul who dragged a giant into the public square. Her phone wrote in hand from then on camera, one thumb tap away. Her schedule settled into predictable lines, bait for the predator who needed an audience. The perfect throw, Coach always said, is 99% setup. December 3rd dawned steel gray, the air inside Rivington charged like static before lightning. Chad had been suspended from the last hockey game for hurling his stick at a referee, and his father's public tirade at the coach had raised even platinum card eyebrows. Everyone knew Chad would bleed his fury on someone. Everyone knew who. Maya glided through morning classes, a strange calm pooling in her chest. She had exhausted every legal channel, now she would step beyond them. Lunch hour roared with privileged chatter about Nantucket winter galas. She sat alone, picking at a budget salad, her phone braced against a water bottle lens, meticulously cleaned at dawn. A ripple of hush spread. Students angled their screens toward the door. Word was out today. The scholarship rat would be put in her place. The doors slammed open with theatrical precision. Chad strode in, Brett and Logan flanking him, their formation honed by years of pack hunting. The cafeteria's din dulled to nervous whispers. Maya didn't lift her gaze, continued chewing with maddening composure, peripheral vision tracking the triangle that closed around her. 3 bodies, but only Chad mattered. The others would scatter at the scent of real danger. Chad's voice sliced the air. "Hey, charity case." He planted his palms on her table, leaning in so every phone camera could record the dominance in his posture. "Here you've been telling lies about me to Donovan." His grin expected fear tears, maybe a plea. Instead, he found the steady eyes of someone who had stared down opponents twice his size on tournament mats. An electric silence seized the room as dozens of lenses rose ready to broadcast whatever came next. This spectacle outshone anything on Netflix, a live-wire drama with real consequences, so phones kept climbing higher red dots fixed on Maya. She finally lifted her gaze, voice steady enough to carry to the back wall. "I've documented every incident, Chad." Evidence isn't a lie. The flicker that crossed his eyes wasn't fear, exactly more the startled awareness of prey discovering the hunter's rifle, but it cracked the performance he'd rehearsed. Coach Sato had drilled into her that most bullies lean on intimidation, not strength. Kick away the crutch, and they topple under their own bravado. Color flushed up Chad's neck. Nearby tables scooted back, widening the arena, until Maya stood alone at its center. "Evidence?" He barked a laugh. "You mean your whiny little diary? Nobody cares what some scholarship rat claims happened. Your word versus mine, and we both know whose word cashes the checks." He straightened, arms flung wide like a minor lord before his vassals. "Everyone knows you don't belong here. Your mom slings sandwiches from a truck. Your dad couldn't even spring for his own funeral expenses. You poisoned this place just by breathing." The words were honed to cut and bait tears that would justify whatever came next. Yet Maya felt only the crystalline calm of tournament focus. Her senses snapped open, the rubber squeal of sneakers repositioning for better angles, the stale scent of mac and cheese cooling on trays, the press of 100 lenses begging her to crack. "Are you finished?" she asked, and the quiet question proved sharper than any comeback. Fury ignited behind Chad's grin. He jerked her backpack off the table and upended it, papers and battered textbooks skittering across the polished floor. Her leather-bound journal, months of timestamps, screenshots, names thudded by his shoes. He snatched it up, glee-lighting his face. "Let's see what the charity case scribbles at night. Bet it's all boo-hoo about Big Bad Chad." He thumbed through pages in sing-song mockery, while Maya simply reached controlled for her property. He yanked the book away, free hand, slamming into her shoulder hard enough to sting. "Don't touch me, trash. I'm doing the school a favor, clearing evidence of your mental instability." The shove, juiced by months of unchecked dominance, sent her rocking, but her feet reset instantly. 8 years of mat work turned gravity into an ally. Time taffy stretched as she mapped angles. Chad advanced journal, held like a war banner. Brett and Logan sealing flanks to block retreat they assumed she'd seek. Give it back, Maya said, loud level palms open where every camera could see she wasn't the aggressor. Real self-defense begins long before the first grip coach used to say. Make me, Chad sneered, 2 words, destined to echo down Rivington lore. He seized the journal with both hands and began tearing. The rip tore through more than paper. It shredded restraint. Evidence erased for laughs while an entire lunchroom watched. Maya's hands moved before thought a last try at peaceful recovery, but Chad's fist shot past, snagging her shirt collar, yanking her forward until his cologne and adrenal sweat filled her nose. Gonna cry, call mommy. Oh wait, she's probably wiping diner counters right now. Threads popped, the fabric split. Gasps spiked the air, and like a starter pistol the sound declared, patience dead. Everything she'd ever learned funneled into this moment. Chad's grip-high center of mass, pitched arrogance fogging his balance, he'd handed her the blueprint to his own downfall. 10,000 repetitions fired through muscle memory. Right hand clamps, his wrist, left hand cups, his triceps, hips, whip under right foot threads, the gap flow as smooth as mercury. Chad's eyes flared when he felt his balance evacuate, but physics had already seized command. One heartbeat he loomed, the next he was airborne, 200 pounds gone weightless, cartwheeling over Maya's shoulder in a perfect Ippon-level Seoi nage. Phones captured every frame the state champion hockey captain, inverted mouth, warped from roar to gasp to primal terror. Silence vacuumed the cafeteria. Even breath seemed stunned. Chad hit first bone meat and ego smacking linoleum with a thunder that rattled silverware, then skidded 20 feet, finally thudding against the far wall. A lunch tray clattered down beside him, punctuating the hush. Maya remained crouched in ready stance, torn shirt, fluttering pulse steady. She hadn't chased, hadn't struck. She'd applied minimum force to halt an assault textbook, undeniable, immortalized on dozens of live streams, already migrating to Rivington Throwdown. Chad groaned, tried to push up, crumpled. Brett and Logan froze, alpha dethroned by the prey they'd toyed with all semester. A solitary clap cracked the spell, then another, until scattered applause tumbled into the void. A girl near the juice bar wept, not fear, but release. Maya exhaled, smoothed the ragged edges of her shirt, and stooped to reclaim her journal movements, unhurried, almost reverent. Students rushed forward, suddenly brave, gathering her spilled papers, handing them over with awe-softened faces. The complicity dam had burst. Dean Rogers bulled through the throng like a man weighting concrete features, contorting as he absorbed the tableau. Chad Whitman slumped against tile, Maya Hernandez upright, and composed a sea of phones filming his every blink. What on earth happened, he demanded, though the evidence blazed around him. Voices erupted, pent-up months of grievance flooding daylight. He attacked her. She was defending herself. He's been harassing her all semester. Videos hovered inches from the dean's face angles, overlapping in a digital indictment. Maya watched his expression calcify as he computed liability lawsuits, Department of Education subpoenas, the apocalypse of every storied prep academy. Miss Hernandez, he said at last, tone fragile as spun glass, are you hurt? His eyes flicked from her torn shirt to Chad's whimpering form, gears of damage control already stripping teeth. My shirt is ruined, Maya answered evenly. I'd like to file a formal complaint, and I'll need every one of those videos forwarded to the Title IX coordinator. Each word landed like precision strikes, and the dean's pallor grew one shade paler because the old Rivington formula quiet meeting, generous donation, discreet hush, couldn't plug a scandal already rocketing across cyberspace. The phrase Title IX complaint and federal investigation hovered like a judge's verdict, and the shockwave rippled through the room, lawsuits, subpoenas, everything Rivington Prep had spent a century and a fortune to avoid. Maya hadn't just defended herself. She'd weaponized the school's own rulebook, turning their fear of scandal into a blade sharper than any throw. Chad, propped upright by the school nurse, tried to croak. She attacked, but the words came out thin and petulant, his aura of command crumbling like plaster. Enough, Dean Rogers snapped, voice cracking like dry timber. Even he had limits, and seeing the Whitman heir grasp at victimhood while sprawled in his own wreckage crossed them. Mr. Whitman, you are suspended pending full investigation. Security will escort you off campus. The decree fell with the finality of a gavel, Rivington's royalty dethroned. Chaos bloomed, but it felt like jubilation. Years of bottled resentment against Chad's clique burst free in a torrent of testimonies, students recalling stolen homework, slammed lockers, pay-to-play impunity. Maya stood at the storm's calm center, no longer the invisible scholarship kid, but the force that made the untouchable touchable. As she moved toward the doors, the crowd parted with something close to reverence. The torn shirt meant to humiliate her had become the banner of Chad's downfall. Hockey would need a new Captain Yale, a new legacy admit, and the Whitman family a battalion of lawyers richer than their donations. The weight settling on Maya's shoulders wasn't a burden. It was armor forged by months of harassment and tempered in a 2-second arc of perfect technique. She'd wanted anonymity, but history had other plans. Sometimes the world refuses to let you hide. Within hours, the footage detonated across social media. Rivington Throwdown rocketed to nationwide trending, shared by suburban parents, pro-athletes, and civil rights lawyers alike. Morning shows froze the throw frame by frame. Former Olympians praised its precision and restraint, how she launched a 200-pound athlete, yet spared him permanent injury. Chad's overnight hospital stay for a concussion only fed the narrative privilege literally thrown down, gravity restoring balance. A sympathetic custodian leaked security camera angles that showed the stalking, the destroyed property, the torn shirt self-defense made undeniable. Public opinion crowned Maya a hero and labeled Chad everything wrong with elite prep culture. But Rivington's protection machine was slow to die. 2 days later, a Bennett-hired attorney in a bespoke suit prowled campus, whispering that Maya faced expulsion for excessive force. A PR firm floated op-eds painting Chad as a misunderstood youth blindsided by a secret martial arts assassin. His father burned favors like bonfires demanding the narrative flip. That backfire was swift. Sarah Chen, student council president, rallied peers with surgical efficiency. "We've all got Chad stories," she declared, launching a petition for a transparent investigation that drew hundreds of signatures in a single afternoon, many from families whose names also perched on building wings. The campus cleaved into two eras, old Rivington clinging to toxic tradition, and the future choosing principle over pedigree. Teachers who'd once laughed off complaints now sweated under questions of complicity. Administrators who had filed Maya's evidence in drawers dug it out, hands shaking. Parents who'd muttered disapproval in carpools now stormed board meetings, emboldened by the safety of numbers. Local news interviewed Maya's mother beside the food truck window, flour dusting her apron. "My daughter defended herself, that's all any parent could ask," she said, voice steady as forged steel. B-roll of the modest truck cut against drone shots of the Whitman estate, a 21st century David and Goliath montage that lit comment sections with solidarity from families who knew the price of opportunity. The judo world rallied. Coach Sato went viral, breaking down the mechanics' minimum necessary force textbook control, which only deepened the narrative that this victory was discipline, not luck. Reporters dug up Maya's forgotten trophy photos, the scholarship she'd declined to keep the family afloat, the prodigy sidelined by poverty. The story shifted from cafeteria fight to squandered potential, to systemic barriers that bury talent before it blossoms. Under pressure that money couldn't smother, Rivington announced a sweeping review of anti-bullying policy and a renewed commitment to inclusive excellence. Students who had lived the reality called it lipstick on a cracked statue. They knew the same hands that ignored Chad's behavior would write the report. The board split. Some Whitman Sr., loudest among them, pushed for Maya's immediate removal. Others, reading the legal forecast, urged reform. Chad, meanwhile, plotted. His family's roots ran deep. When official channels faltered, he reached for darker tools. Security cameras glitched near Maya's usual paths. Her schedule leaked to grim online forums. The food truck phone rang with blocked number threats. Schoolyard bullying had evolved into menace, and Maya understood the cafeteria throw wasn't the final battle, only the opening salvo. She countered with strategy, varying routes, traveling in packs, phone always hot, recording to cloud backups. Rivington's token security measures felt like cardboard shields. She trusted contingency plans drawn from years on the mat. December 20th, final day before winter break, campus lay half deserted, most students scattered to Park City slopes or Hawaiian resorts. Maya lingered boxing up textbooks she might never reopen if the board sided with Whitman wealth. The parking lot was dark when she emerged, arms full of dreams on loose leaf. Her Corolla crouched alone beneath the only functioning nest cam, its red eye blinking. She'd chosen that spot weeks earlier betting Chad would try something, and determined that the camera tested personally would survive whatever glitch took the others offline. To be continued. Feeling that surge of courage, hit like. If Maya's throw made you believe in justice, share this story to remind others they're never powerless, and subscribe for more true-to-life takedowns, where courage flips the script on privilege. Drop a comment telling us, when did you decide enough was enough?